Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to my channel. Just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Brittany. I've been with my husband DJ now for 6 years total, 2 years married. It's been on my heart the last couple of months, and I feel like God is calling me to tell our struggles and our journey of infertility with y'all. So I'm just going to kind of give you a little background of how we got to the point we are now. So bear with me because there's quite a bit. So DJ and I decided that we would start trying to have our baby on our 1 year wedding anniversary, which would have been October 21st, 2018. So we're going on about 15 months of trying now. I would like to say that I was very naive in the beginning. I don't consider myself a planner, but when it came to planning to have a baby and start a family, I just thought it was going to be super easy and that by Christmas I'd be pregnant and we would be announcing to our friends and family with a cute little announcement at Christmas and on Facebook, and I had everything picked out. And obviously, you're watching this video, so that did not happen. But I kind of I wasn't really trying at that point. I was kind of just, we were trying, but I wasn't tracking anything. The only thing I was tracking was my period, and I was using period and ovulation trackers apps that I had on my phone, and I was just kind of basing everything off of that. And I very quickly realized that those were not very accurate. For someone that has a perfect 28-day cycle and they ovulate on day 14, those apps are perfect and you go, girl. But for someone like me whose cycles are not that perfect 28 days and ovulating on cycle day 14, they do not work very well. So when we first started trying, my period actually was late that very first month, and so I was like, woo, yay, we did it, I'm pregnant. Went out and got pregnancy tests, took it, and it was negative. And it was very discouraging for me. And I know it's stupid, and looking back now, it's dumb for me to get all excited and like sad because it wasn't positive. Mainly because I know how hard it actually is to have a baby. So the fact that it didn't happen really wasn't the end of the world. And my husband is very good at reminding me that, that we were just trying, and that might take a couple months for it to work. So a couple months went by, and I kind of just we were just doing our thing, and we really weren't, like I said, we weren't taking ovulation tests. And then I don't know, a couple months had went by, and it was like January, and so I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take this seriously. I'm gonna buy some ovulation test. I'm going to buy a thermometer to check my basal body temperature, and I was like, and we are going to do this. So I began taking the test. I read the instructions on the back of the box and followed that to a T. And I was noticing that I wasn't getting a positive ovulation test. And, I thought maybe I'm taking them wrong. Maybe I'm not taking enough. Just because it was new and it wasn't something that I had ever done before, so it was kind of just like a learning curve in a way. But my periods have always kind of been a little weird, and I wasn't really tracking everything because I was on birth control up until 3 months before we started trying to have a baby. That is what my OBYGN had instructed for us to do. That way, everything was out of my system. So, when I came off birth control, my periods were kind of just all over the place because, I didn't have that hormone balance and everything out. So I just, I kind of was like, okay, this is kind of weird. I noticed that I started to spot 2 to 3 days before I got my period, and just stuff like that. And so I was then also bleeding irregularly in between my periods, and I was like, okay, this is weird, like this is not normal. And it was doing that for a couple months, and I kept like telling people, and I told my mom, and my mom's like, maybe you should go you should go to the doctors and see what's going on. So I went to the doctors and I told her that I was concerned, about about me bleeding irregularly in between my periods, and I also, kind of just told her my concerns about me not ovulating. And at that time we had been trying for like 4 months, and so she looked at me like, you're being a little too impatient right now, and she was like trying to tell me like it took me a year or so before I conceived my own. Like sometimes it takes longer than, sometimes it takes a year to have a baby, and kind of like trying to make me feel better. But I got very emotional and pushed for her to check to see if I had PCOS, just because I wasn't ovulating and I didn't have any other symptoms that pointed to PCOS besides the not ovulating every month. And so um she told me that she would do it, and I kind of just advocated for myself. So that was the end of February, beginning of March when I had that appointment. And in between that appointment and the ultrasound and getting my results back and going back in to talk to her, I actually got a positive ovulation test, the first one ever. So I was super excited. And I do have to mention that when I did go in for the PCOS and all that good stuff, she did inform me to have sex every other day, just so even if we weren't taking ovulation test, we would hit it. Because fun fact for y'all, sperm can live in where for up to 5 days. So 2 to 3 days, but sometimes they can live up to 5 days. So that way they were there, and then hit the sperm count would be high as well, and give them a day to rest. So I went back in and she told me that everything looked fine and that I didn't have PCOS. And she did suggest that we could do something where they could flush out my entire system, kind of just like jumpstart everything back to like C-Day 1, and it would be like a fresh new cycle. But she also did tell me that if I was going to do that, that we'd have to stop trying for a couple weeks. And anyone that's trying, they know that a couple weeks is more like a month, because of depending on your cycle and all that good stuff. Just because they could, if I was pregnant, they could flush out the baby. And so I just kind of opted out of that, because at that time, thankfully the bleeding in between my periods had stopped. So I was like, okay, I'm good. That's not an issue no more. And then I had gotten that positive ovulation test, so I was like, okay, maybe I was just doing it wrong and not taking them in the right time. So a couple of weeks went by, and that 2-week waiting period, for, again, anyone that's trying, they know what I mean by that. So the 2-week wait after your ovulation, after you get a positive ovulation test, is called the luteal phase. So that's from ovulation till your next cycle day. Usually that's a 2-week period, 2-week window. So I started spotting a couple days beforehand, and I was like, nope, I'm not pregnant. And that was kind of upsetting to me a little bit, because I was like, dang it. I was like, I thought, I got a positive. I was like, I thought when you got a positive ovulation test, you'd get pregnant. And we were doing it every other day, like the doctor had instructed. And I just, I thought we had it. And I remember a couple days later, I remember this day like it was yesterday. I was watching my little cousin babysitting for my grandma. And that day I just woke up so sick, like throwing up, diarrhea. And I was like, wow, like the flu just hit me all at once. And it was just kind of like, it was kind of out of the like it was like out of the blue, but at the same time, like it was still flu season, so I didn't think nothing of it. And so a couple days, that next day, I was starting to feel. My husband DJ get me some McDonald's, because I don't know about you all, but Mickey D's French fries and some Sprite after you've been sick and haven't eaten all day sounds amazing. So he brought that home to me, and later that night, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I kind of felt constipated. Um, and, sometimes I get really bad period cramps. And so I just thought nothing of it. And so I went down to the bathroom, tried to go to the bathroom. I couldn't. I remember that I had cramps and back pain so bad that I tried getting in the bathtub to like relieve the pain with the heat, and nothing was happening. And I was in a fetal position on the floor because it hurt so bad. And, thought nothing of it. The next day, like I said, I was on my period. And the next day, I took some Midol, and it doesn't really bother me that much. But I decided that I needed that. A couple weeks went by, and I started to spot in between my periods again. And I was like at that point very frustrated. I texted my friend and was like, I don't understand. Like, I don't know why I'm bleeding irregularly again. Like, I'm spotting. This is so frustrating. Maybe I should have them flush out my system. And I got this overwhelming feeling to take a pregnancy test. So I went home, and DJ was not home. And I took a pregnancy test, expecting it to be negative because I had my period. And I looked down, and sure enough, it's freaking positive. And I was like freaking out. I didn't know what to do. I called DJ, not how I wanted to tell him. And I was like freaking out. I was shaking. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. And like, he was freaking out because, like, yeah, we were trying, but like, I wasn't expecting it. So the next morning, I had a digital pregnancy test that would say pregnant or not pregnant. And first morning urine is the best to take a pregnancy test. And so we took one together, and sure enough, the words pregnant show up. And we were ecstatic, scared, nervous, all at the same time. So because we had been trying now for almost 7 months, 7 months, I was like I called the OB right away, and I was like, I got a positive pregnancy test. And, they asked about my last period and all that good stuff. And they're like, well, we usually don't get to see you for 6 weeks. So I made an appointment and to go in there. And it was a while, but she did say that, if I wanted to, I could call my family doctor and have them just confirm it for me. So knowing, because of how the type of person that I am, I was so excited that I just wanted to have that doctor tell me you're pregnant. So I made an appointment and was able to get one. I took that test on a Thursday, so I was able to get one that Monday. So now that weekend, my husband and I were going out for a business conference. So I didn't take any pregnancy tests, but in between that time period, I took like 5, and they were all positive. And while we were on that trip, I was starting to spot, and I was like, I was kind of nervous, but I had looked up on Google because I hate to admit it, but I look everything up on Google, even though I know you're not supposed to. And it just said, in the first trimester, like light pink spotting is perfectly normal. And DJ reassured me. He's like, if it says that, then it probably is. So when we got back from our business trip that Monday, I took a pregnancy test, and because I was kind of like obsessing over it, and you could barely see the line. Like, it was so dark the time before that, and then this time, you couldn't even see anything. And I remember going to DJ, just telling him, like, I think I don't, like, something's wrong. Like, I kept taking them, and he's like, babe, I'm sure it's fine. I was like, no. I was like, I think there's something, like, I think I'm miscarrying, like, this, like, something's wrong. So I had I had my appointment with my family doctor, and I had called them and was like, like, I can barely see the pregnancy test line. Are you still wanting me to come in? And they're like, yeah, just come in. So I went there, took a test with them, and my family doctor confirmed that, yes, I can see the line. Maybe it just implanted and you're miscarrying. I don't really know. I'm going to refer you back to the OB. So referred me to the OB. The OB told me that they wanted me to go ahead and go in for blood work to confirm whether I'm pregnant. She called me and that later that day, and they told me that it was at a 15. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And she said, that means that you're barely pregnant. She's like, so I'm going to have you come back in 48 hours. Your levels are supposed to rise. Your HCG is supposed to rise at that point. So we'll just see from there. So then I went back. 48 hours later, did another blood test, and that one came back to a 17. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And she's like, I don't know. That just doesn't seem. That just I'm gonna have you go in and do another blood work. But I also want you to come in, and we're gonna have an appointment. So, the day that I was supposed to take it was on a Saturday, so I went in, and they're obviously closed. But they told me that they could tell me the blood test results if I gave them signed off rights, that they could call me. And so at work they called me and told me that the level went down to a 13. And I knew then that I was miscarrying and that I didn't need to go to the doctors to have them tell me that I was miscarrying, because I already knew it in my heart. So we went to the doctors and they told me, you know, she looked at my blood work and I got it done again that day, just to kind of confirm. But she said, yeah, you miscarried, and it's very common in the first trimester to miscarry. And but she's like, it's a good thing that you took the test. And I was upset. Like, I kind of wish I wouldn't have took the test, because if I wouldn't have took the test, I would have never even known that I was pregnant. And she was like, no, like, I'm happy that you took it, because now we know that that his sperm works and your eggs work, and that's awesome. That's good. And she's like, it's normal. Miscarrying in the first trimester is completely normal. Just something happened when the egg and sperm met, and it was just she said that. But it was still very, very upsetting for me. I think I took it harder. I think all girls do, and I wasn't even pregnant for that long. But the fact that I was pregnant and I saw those pregnancy tests and I planned everything. We start trying, and she's like, you can start trying again. Like, you're good. My hormone levels went back to normal. And so looking back now, that night that I was in excruciating pain was because I was miscarrying. Fast forward, I was continue taking ovulation tests, because now after I had miscarried, I was like, I want to be pregnant now. The fact that I had seen that pregnancy test and confirmed that I was actually pregnant, and the fact that we lost it, it was just this urgency to be pregnant as soon as possible. So I continued to take ovulation tests at that point. And after that, I decided that I wanted to get the Ava bracelet. And if you're not aware of what the Ava bracelet is, it's just a watch that you wear in the middle of the night, and it tracks your sleep. Checks your basal body temperature. You don't have to do nothing. You just wear it. How much you sleep. All that good stuff. And so I kind of just wanted that because it would confirm when I ovulated every month. So I got that in the mail and started using that right away. And I was still taking ovulation tests just to confirm, because again, it's just an app and it wasn't as accurate, but I've heard very good things about it. And I was noticing, it was becoming a trend, that I was noticing that I was ovulating every other month. It was like 99.9% positive that's what was happening. And then when I was ovulating on cycle day 19 or 20 of my 30-day cycle, which means that I didn't even have a full 10 days after ovulation in that luteal phase. And I became a part of a group chat on the Ava bracelet on Facebook, and I was talking about how like I was spotting a couple days beforehand, and I just thought it was kind of was wondering if it was normal, and someone had said, maybe you should get your progesterone checked out to see if see if that's wrong. And so this was in end of August, and so I was like, you know what? That was back in April when we had miscarried in the beginning of April. So I said, you know what? It's been a couple months. I'm still not pregnant. I was like, I'm going to reach back out. So I reached back out to the doctor that I spoke to when I had my miscarriage. And I didn't get to speak to her directly, but I talked to the nurse over the phone, and I just kind of told her my concerns, that I was 99.9% positive that I wasn't ovulating every month. And when I did ovulate, kind of just told her the same thing that I just told you guys, that it was on cycle day 19, and that I was just concerned that maybe I had low progesterone. So she decided that she would go ahead and talk to the doctor. She called me back and told me that the doctor had decided that I should go and see the ovulation specialist there in the office. So I made an appointment with her, and that took a whole month because she was considered a infertility specialist. So I had to make sure my insurance was covered and all that good stuff. And so I went and seen her. It took a month, so this was in September now. And at this point in time, it was like almost a year. So I was like, I just want answers at this point. And she called my miscarriage a chemical miscarriage. And I'm not going to lie, that kind of was a little frustrating. Like, you don't got to call it a chemical miscarriage. Just call it a miscarriage. Like, don't, like, degrade my miscarriage. It was still a miscarriage. They consider anything under 6 weeks a chemical miscarriage, which is stupid, but it is what it is. And so I kind of just told her what was going on, and she's like, okay, I believe you. Like, we'll just put you on some medication, and we'll get you ovulating. She's like, sometimes just the brain doesn't tell, the egg to release, and that's a simple, easy fix. And she's like, I'm just going to run some blood work paneling on you, and we'll go from there. So I was, at that point, I was ecstatic. I was like, yes, I'm getting on medication. That's all I wanted. I'd known a lot of people that got put on, they're going to put me on letrozole, and I knew a lot of people that were on letrozole or Clomid. They're pretty much the same thing, but I think a lot of doctors are now straying away from the Clomid and are going with the letrozole. And so I was excited about that. So I went in for my blood work, and a couple weeks later I had my follow-up appointment with her just to go over the medication that she was putting me on and my blood work results. Most of my blood work came back normal. The one thing that she did notice was that I was insulin resistant just by like a little bit under. So she put me on metformin because there's been studies shown that people that are insulin resistant have some issues getting pregnant. So she put me on the metformin. Didn't mean I was diabetic. It just was something that helped with getting me pregnant. And then she was concerned with my FSH level blood test that she took. It came back an 11.6. And what she explained that to me is the FSH level should be under 10 and below. And since mine was above 10, she considered that premenopausal. And she's like, I'm not really concerned about it. You're super young. I was 23 at that point. I wasn't even 24 yet. She's like, you're super young. I'm not worried about it. We're just going to retake it. You took it later in your period. You're supposed to take it in the beginning. And I was like, okay. And I left that appointment crying. At that point, I was like, I just wish she wouldn't have even told me. Like, I wish I wouldn't have even known. I remember I called my sister crying. I was like, I think something, like, she doesn't know. Like, I'm nervous now. My sister's like, you gotta relax. Like, it's fine. Like, she's not worried about it. You shouldn't be worried about it. So, I never wanted my period to come more than ever when I had to retake that test. So then it finally came. I retook the test. And I forgot to mention that she said that if it came back the same or higher, that she was going to refer me to an IVF specialist because she didn't really know what to do at that point. It was kind of like out of her job description. So she called me while I was at work and told me that my FSH level was a 12.6. So not only did it not go down, but it rose. So at that point, she told me that I'm going to refer you to an IVF specialist. And my whole world felt like it was crashing down around me. It was my worst fear. I did not want to do IVF, and the fact that I had to now go see an IVF specialist because she didn't know what was going on with my body was pretty scary. And I left work a mess that day, and I know now looking back, it's not the end of the world, but when you get news that you're not expecting, it kind of becomes the end of the world. So I had already started taking the letrozole because you have to take that on your cycle day 1. So I took the blood test and then began taking that. And so I said, can I just continue taking this, because it was going to take me a whole month just to get in to see the IVF specialist. And she's like, yeah, that's fine. We'll go ahead. We'll give it a try. If you're pregnant, great. If you're not, you have that appointment. So she had me go in for an ultrasound just because she wanted to make sure that my ovaries wasn't overstimulating with the letrozole, because that was a possible side effect of that, and it could my ovaries could erupt if they did overstimulate. So she went ahead and we went in for an ultrasound, and she's like, everything looks great. You're gonna ovulate this month. I predict in the next 2 days. So I started taking ovulation tests, got a positive, and I was very hopeful for that month for me to get pregnant. That month came and went, and I again was not pregnant. I feel like it's just kind of devastating because you have her looking at your ovaries on an ultrasound, saying that you're gonna ovulate. We were still doing the every other day thing, and it was becoming a chore just to do it. And so as the months kept going on and we were coming on month 11 of trying, it was starting to get very frustrating and upsetting. So I asked if she could put me back on the letrozole for another month. While I was waiting to get into the IVF specialist, I wasn't able to get into them until November 4th. And so this was the month of October. And she said, yeah, we can just do it. We'll do it again. And so I took that again, started doing that. And at the same time, I was still taking my metformin. And she had also put me on progesterone pills that following month, and it was supposed to stop my period, and I was supposed to stop taking them just, and I was gonna have to stop taking them just to get my period, and it did not work. The progesterone pills did not work at all, and so it kind of was a red flag to me, maybe I do have issues with progesterone. But at that point, I was going to the IVF doctor, so I wasn't gonna concern asking her about that. So for the second month of letrozole, I took that, went in for my routine ultrasound, and this was the month that I wasn't supposed to ovulate, so I was wondering how well the letrozole was going to work. So I took the letrozole, went in for the ultrasound appointment, and she told me that nothing was going on in there, nothing whatsoever, and that was devastating. I started crying, and I was like, I just don't understand. And it was frustrating to me because it's if this medication's not working, what am I going to do? It was just frustrating me that it wasn't working, and that another month was going to go by and we were going to be at our 1 year mark and still not pregnant. So I'm going to end the video now, and I hope you all enjoyed this, and thanks for watching. Bye.